When you have a fight or even a small moment of rupture, how do you not only repair it, but even turn it into an opportunity for growth? Hey, I'm Cassidy, your love coach, and on this channel, we talk about thriving relationships and how to live a life of pleasure and purpose. In today's episode, Matt and I will give you an example of the master framework in action using a moment of friction from our own lives recently. The master framework is a 6-step process for turning a moment of conflict into connection. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned. As you know, if you follow along, we're always talking about taking challenging moments of friction, and using them as opportunities to grow together.
And since we've been on our journey of relationship exponential growth, we've had less and less of these moments, but today we did have one that we wanted to share with you, a moment of a little bit of unease and friction and how we turn that around.
So let's dive right in. We'll tell you what was going on, and then we'll tell you what we did about it.
Yeah. So we were both working away this morning, me on some real estate. We've got a big project coming up that really excited about and doing lots of team organizing and back and forth with lenders, a bunch of people, a lot of them back on the East Coast, and we're on the West Coast. So I was a bit under a time crunch, but was, working away.
Yeah, I was working on getting my next program out into the world, which I'm really excited about, by the way. Know Your Bliss, awesome program for women coming out soon. But I was having a little trouble with some strategy pieces around marketing. So I asked Matt if I could have 5 minutes of his time to help me work through some of this strategy, because he has an amazing strategy brain.
And I was like, okay, 5 minutes. And I know this would help you get going for the rest of your day while I kept working on my stuff. So I figured I can spare 5 minutes for that.
But what I brought to you was more than a 5-minute challenge. It was more like a half an hour challenge.
Yeah. So about 25 minutes in, I was really starting to feel like, okay, I need to get back. I'll give you an answer and then go. And there was getting a little more frustration and less than ideal communication. Yeah,
it just led to a conversation where neither of us were like really listening that well to each other, and both just getting a little bit frustrated. And it didn't turn into any kind of fight or anything like that, but we normally are really great at collaborating and always having positive conversations. So when we had this friction, it just really didn't feel good.
Yep. And at one point I just had to get back to work and was like, okay, cool, meeting done. Yeah, but it wasn't feeling great. Wasn't
feeling great. So here's the thing: we could have just moved along with our day and kind of, shake it off, whatever, no big deal, sweep it under the rug, move on. It would have been easy to do because it really wasn't that big of a deal. But we were both feeling a little icky. And not feeling connected to each other.
And with the really high standard that we have of our relationship and how we feel, couldn't just let that go.
Exactly.
So enter the master framework.
If you would like a refresher, more deep dive on the master framework, then check out the episode that's a couple episodes ago, which we will link in the description. But we'll give you the brief overview of it here and how we applied it in the moment.
Yeah. First M is take a moment. So you went for a walk?
Yeah, I was sitting there for a few minutes. I tried to keep working, and then I realized, okay, I've got some feelings that need to be felt. That's, I need to step away and take a moment. So I decided to take a walk, which is such a great way to take a moment and just get the body moving and be in nature, appreciate what's around me.
Also gave you time to do A, which was
acknowledge and allow. A, the second step. Yep. So during my walk, while I took a moment, I just noticed what I was feeling and let myself feel it, cried a few tears, and just welcomed and felt whatever was there.
Yeah. I didn't do any of that. I got back to work and fired off the things that I needed to. But then about 10 minutes later, realized, okay, still feeling a little down, a little tight. What's going on here? Then I took that moment. Actually didn't acknowledge the feels till a little bit later. That was an area that realized always needs work, is just feel the feel. As you say in your coaching, you do it so well, and sometimes that's really what's needed. So I was still feeling a little off, but came in to apologize.
Yeah, once I got back from my walk, I was back in the office for a couple of minutes, and then Matt showed up at the door and said, hey, just wanted to say I'm sorry for, being kind of impatient and frustrated with you in our conversation.
And then we did the tea, talked it out, explained where I was coming from, how didn't really have that time, and just felt a little, unacknowledged, and, all this stuff.
And you did a really great job of using nonviolent communication. High fives.
Thank you.
You're awesome at that. Taking some practice, but it seems like it's kind of like natural now. Hey, don't have to really think about it.
Sometimes I do. I think I've got like 80% of it most of the time, but then sometimes it's like, oh yeah, right. Talk about me, not what you did. Talk about how I was feeling.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Also, if you want a recap of nonviolent communication, we'll link that episode in the show notes as well, because that is such an important skill. If you and your partner have not yet learned nonviolent communication, go do it.
Yeah.
So good.
Then my favorite step, E, embrace. Somebody who's one big primary love language is physical touch. I always enjoy that. So nice long embrace. And that's when I realized, skipped A. Time to jump back to A and feel it. Yep.
Yeah. And this is the power, actually. This is why I love the step embrace so much, is because when you come together after a moment of disconnection, when you come together to hug it out, if there's anything left that hasn't been felt yet, or anything that hasn't been expressed to each other yet, you're going to notice it while you're hugging. When you're that physically close, anything unresolved in between you is going to be more obvious. So as we were hugging, you realized, oh wait, I skipped A. Let me rewind.
Yep.
Feel what I was feeling. Okay, great.
Yeah, definitely helpful to have the acronym as well. Master is like, okay, yeah, A.
And then we moved on to the final step of the master framework, R, for requests and resolution.
So I requested that we schedule at least half-hour chunks for strategy sessions.
And put them in the calendar.
And then also resolve that if ever I'm torn or being requested and it's not the ideal time, to give an alternative rather than just say yes.
And yeah, that was my request, that if the time doesn't work for you, tell me that, and then we can schedule a time. And also that when we do sit down to work together, I request you be fully present, or if you can't be fully present, then we pick another time. Yeah. And so we, had those requests for each other. That was very collaborative, made sense to both of us, all in agreement.
Felt good. They were back in the juicy flow.
Yeah, feeling connected once again. And so that's an example of how you can take moments of frustration, a moment that would have been very easy just to sweep under the rug and let go of, move along. But instead, we went all the way through it together and came out the other side feeling connected again. And I think that's really the biggest thing, is it's like, we also put some new agreements in place that will just help us live life together in a more harmonious way, which is
probably have less of these kind of conflicts,
exactly.
Which has been what's led to having less and less over time, such that it's a really big deal when something like this comes up. It happens maybe once every few months, because we've gotten really good at acknowledging when it's happening, working through it, and then just practicing making those requests as well as get back in the flow.
Yeah. And then there's the compound effect of this, because if we hadn't done the master framework here and resolved and come back to connection, we might have spent the rest of the day just feeling slightly disconnected from each other. Mm-hmm. Even if we had like mostly let it go, there'd be some residue of that hanging around. Mm-hmm. And this is like we talk about how in intimacy, in order to really have that free flow of connection that's required for really great sex, there needs to be nothing between you, right? Imagine a sheet of glass between you, and any little thing that comes up that doesn't get resolved is like a smudge of dirt on that sheet of glass. And so this would be one of those little smudges of dirt. Doesn't seem like a big deal in the moment, but you start adding up those smudges and all of a sudden it becomes harder and harder to connect. And that can get in the way of having great sex or having sex at all, or just having fun moments. Yep. We're a lot less likely to have like playful, fun moments if we've had this frustrating interaction earlier that didn't get resolved and didn't come back to connection.
Yeah. And we'd have one less podcast too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you take away anything from this podcast, I would love for you to remember not to sweep the little things under the rug, because big walls are built one brick at a time. So don't let the little things slide. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos.